Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today, we're going to have a conversation with our friends from up north. Mr. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you're a YouTube hit. You've got some really cool stuff going on YouTube and in the real estate world. Why don't you kind of give us an idea, high level, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for that. So I started in industrial real estate in 2005. Even before that, I actually did a year of residential and just didn't see a good fit in it. So I moved over to a commercial real estate brokerage in 2005. I had some residential investment properties beforehand, but as I progressed into industrial real estate, I've been actually at the same company ever since, so 16 years or so now. And then I started investing myself in 2014, and with some partners along the way, we've now got a pretty decent portfolio of our own. And then mentioning the YouTube, I just love talking about industrial real estate, and it's really a passion of mine and something I just really enjoy doing. And since I had a little bit of a background as like an amateur photographer, it was pretty easy to make the transition into doing video. And it's really a passion of mine. It was actually I shot a video over the weekend, and last night while my wife was watching TV, I was editing away, and I probably 2 hours passed, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" I went by pretty quick. But it's just something that I love doing, so it doesn't really feel like work. Really, just combining something that I'm passionate with something I enjoy doing. It's kind of like best of both worlds there.
Yeah. Now, when I hear stuff like "holy smokes" and the way you said it, that tells me geographically you're in Canada, right?
I am.
All right. Now, my mom was born in Toronto. I have family in Newmarket, all the way BC side, Niagara side. So like we've got family scattered throughout Canada. We love our Canadian family there. So what part of Canada are you in?
I'm in Western Canada. I don't know if people are watching Yellowstone these days, but I'm straight up from the Dutton Ranch.
Did you watch the season 4 last night?
I did. I did. It's yeah. I can't get enough of that show. I've watched it twice now. That whole series.
Beth is a badass.
Oh, is she ever?
Holy moly. I don't want to give any spoilers for people who haven't seen like the Yellowstone, but like favorite okay, who's your favorite character and why?
I would have to go with Rip. I just think for the same reason that Beth is a badass, I think Rip is a badass too. He doesn't care. He's just whatever he's got to do. He's loyal. Like that's everything you'd want in that guy, right? On like the help for the ranch and to keep everything running. He's the muscle, and he's loyal to the team. He does whatever he needs to do. Like that. That's just something that like everybody should aspire towards.
Yeah. Favorite scene of Rip. He's driving and these bikers are out at
Yes.
their farm and he just plows through 20 to 30 bikes on in his truck. Best scene ever on Yellowstone. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. And just how he approaches all the bikers with no care at all. Hey, he just goes right up to them. Like who would have the confidence to go up to a group of bikers like that and essentially take them over?
Yeah.
Just Rip. So
I
what about you? Who's your favorite character?
yeah, so the more I so Rip is the one that's like you admire him. Beth is the one that you fear. Like I like
True.
Beth because she's a no bullshitter. She tells it how it is. She's straight and she is all business, right? Like she is clear. Like I looked at her like and I'm like, she scares me. She terrifies me.
Yes.
So if she's listening, Beth, if you're listening in, you terrify me.
Do you know she's actually English and she has an English accent? She uh, makes that accent sound like she's an American. She
Yeah.
actually is English.
No kidding. Yeah,
Yeah.
she does a great job in that show. But yeah, that's something the wife and I we enjoy watching Yellowstone. So you're due north of that.
Due north. Yeah. Like I can't say I'm a stone's throw away, but I'd be a straight drive south, and I'd hit it.
Yeah, awesome. We went skiing in we flew into Bozeman and then we did some skiing out there. It's beautiful, like big sky, gorgeous. Like you look up and it's just like blue forever. It's gorgeous.
That's one of the good things about living in a winter city is we're a couple hours away from the Canadian Rockies, where like Banff and Jasper, like world class skiing. So
Yeah.
that's I think to live in a cold climate like ours, you have to have a winter hobby, and skiing is the perfect one. So we'll probably be skiing next month already. Actually,
Yeah. Skiing or snowboarder? Which one are you?
I snowboard, but my kids both ski, and my wife goes back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up surfing, so I'm a South Florida boy,
Uh,
right? So snow
yeah.
and me don't get along really well. But I grew up surfing, so I thought I'd give snowboarding a shot, and I did okay at it. But man, I'm pretty good on some skis. Get me off of a snow tube. I wound up in an emergency room on a snow tube, but skiing is where I put my focus.
Yeah, with
Um,
your surfing background though, you'd probably pick up snowboarding quicker than you think though. Like it might take a while just because it is a different motion altogether, but the stance and your balance and getting on your edges, I think you'd pick that up pretty quick.
yeah, I didn't like wakeboarding, right? So we have a bunch of lakes in Florida, and I don't like having my feet strapped in to
Yeah.
one thing. That's kind of what freaks me out a little bit is that being strapped in to a bullet heading down the hill. you know?
Yeah, you just got to make sure you have control over that bullet.
Yeah, which I'm not a guy. If you asked all the people that know me, control or that like Josh is kind of like he's a little bit of a wild card. Like go through trees and jump stuff. That's kind of my jam. But you and I could have a lot of chats about the sports and such like that. But like the show's called the Deal Scout, and I like to get kind of behind the story of the deal maker. It kind of unfolds what kind of deals you do. So, you said you have a background in photography, you have a background in real estate, and you kind of started in, you've been with this company forever. Like, how did you get into it where you're like, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I guess it goes back even farther. So when I originally was going to business school right out of high school, and I was working at a restaurant at the time, and I must have just made a good impression because it was a big restaurant too. It was a big chain of restaurants. They actually offered me a management position. So after my first year of business school, I actually dropped out of it to take the management job, and it was much to my parents' chagrin. Like they were not happy that I dropped out. Like the expectation all along was that I'd go to school. My sister went to medical school and graduated, and now I'm this dropout who's going to be managing a restaurant. So I did that for a while and really just didn't see a long future in that. So I ended up quitting as the manager, and then I bartended. So now my parents were surely even more disappointed.
It's going
At least,
downhill
yeah,
quick.
it was going downhill pretty good. At least I was a manager that dropped out of school. Now I'm a bartender. So they weren't overly happy with that, to say the least. But at the time, I started investing in some residential real estate with some friends, and we kind of bought a few houses and sold them. We didn't really make a lot of money, but it certainly scratched the itch for that. And I was also involved in a much larger project where I was kind of a tag along. I wasn't necessarily instrumental to it, but a guy that I knew bought a hundred and I think it was 112 unit apartment complex in Columbus, Ohio. And I was involved with it and helping out. So I'd fly to Columbus all the time. It was actually, I think it was 28 fourplexes, if memory serves correctly. And we lost our shirt on it. Everybody was stealing from us. The numbers didn't make sense. Like we were losing so much money. So we pulled out of that. And then I just kind of needed to find a job. Like that's where I was banking on that project, kind of paying some dividends and making a living off of it. I had quit bartending at that time. And I wanted to use that experience that I had in real estate. So that's why I actually got into residential real estate. And that was 2004. And same thing with being a restaurant manager. I just didn't see a long-term future with it. So I started asking around, and I thought commercial real estate sounds like it could be a great industry to be in. And I asked some people that I knew if they could make some introductions, led to an interview at the brokerage that I've been at ever since. And funny on that as well is I thought I'd be selling like office towers or retail shopping centers. Like that's what I kind of knew about commercial real estate at the time. But the brokerage that I ended up joining had a heavy presence in industrial. So just by pure fluke, that's where I ended up. All the people that were working there, the mentors, people that I could ask questions to, were all in industrial real estate. So I kind of almost accidentally stumbled into industrial real estate. But I like to say it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me because it's become an absolute passion of mine, where that's what I think about all the time. I wake up and I think industrial real estate. I go to bed and I think industrial real estate. And I never would have even thought that would have been a career path, call it 20 years ago. So I just, and along the way, I've had that fever of wanting to invest in real estate. And it took more time. Like I was in it for probably 9 years before I started having the comfort to start investing in it. It's been a wonderful career to work in, and it's been just a great thing to grow my wealth in as well. So it's, yeah, kind of accidentally stumbled into it, but I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. Now you mentioned, I always like to point something out. If I hear something like as I'm interviewing something, I go, huh, that seems funny. You said you wake up thinking industrial real estate, you go to bed thinking industrial real estate. Now you're a guy who's married, right? Like, is this all your wife hears about all day long is industrial real estate?
Yes, it's not even like I can't even overstate how much of an industrial real estate nerd that I am. But I'll give you an example, which will probably help it sink in for people that are listening. Is I actually tracked down an old Prologis Monopoly game. So Prologis is the largest industrial owner in the world, and they put out a Monopoly game like, I don't even know how long ago, 10 years ago. And I tracked one down on eBay and had it shipped to my house. So one day my wife sees a box show up and she's like, well, what's this? And I'm like, oh, it's an industrial real estate Monopoly game. So I have it factory sealed. And that's just one example. Like I've got so many books on industrial real estate. I've got like industrial themed, you name it. I even have industrial wine and industrial beer that's branded that. So yes, I do think about it all the time. And my wife probably shudders every time a new box shows up on and what's going to be inside of it.
Hey, some people like hats, some people like trains. This guy likes industrial
I
stuff,
do.
right?
I do.
Yeah. So this is crazy. All right. So you and I show up at an industrial project, right? So first of all, how would these people even know that, like I'm gonna sell this one day, or yeah, like how would that seller even know to sell, or why they should sell, or what goes through their mind to say one day I want to talk to a broker and sell this?
Yeah, and I think before someone even gets to that level, they should really have a pretty good level of comfort on what industrial real estate is. Someone mentioned this to me the other day, and this will stick because I think that this sums up what a lot of people that aren't familiar with industrial real estate think of it. And he said the only thing I know about industrial real estate is when I get lost when I'm driving and I somehow end up in an industrial park and I don't know where I am. He's
Yeah.
like, that's all that I know about industrial real estate. So I think that for people that are considering getting into industrial real estate, they really need to do a deep dive into the topic so they know exactly what it is and what it isn't. And then there's also some people that get put into it. Like it could be a family that owns industrial real estate. Maybe someone passes away, and then it's the kids that take it over, and it was their parents that ran it the whole time, and now it's put on to the kids to do it, and they don't know anything about industrial real estate. That's also common. I've found that industrial real estate is either a topic you know a lot about, or it's a topic you know almost nothing about. So to bridge that gap is it's an exercise in having to inform yourself and learn everything you can about it. So I don't know if somebody is put in that position where they perhaps own an industrial property, they probably have a good sense of the market. They probably know what vacancies are. They probably know who's in the market. They probably know what the price is going to be. They probably have a good sense about it. If they get put into it, then my best recommendation would be to find that outside help. If you can't get yourself up to speed quick enough, is get a lawyer on your team, get an accountant, get a banker, get a broker, talk to other people, get a sense of what's going on, and then rely on their expertise to navigate your way through there. But it's like I said, it's something you either know a lot about or you don't know anything about. And if you don't know anything about it, you better equip yourself with a team and some resources pretty quick.
Yeah. In deal making, that is a whale, right? Like I started in residential real estate. Actually, I started in construction, then residential real estate. And I've listed I've listed a single mobile home, right? And then I started seeing guys who are buying like 10 houses at a time. Then I started working with guys who were buying mobile home parks, and then multifamily and multifamily complexes, and then we did some development, right? So industrial is even bigger than that, right? It is a monster. So the deals, what size deal is an average, you know, industrial deal that you put together?
Yeah, great question. And there is the full spectrum on that. Like there's transactions out there that are hundreds of millions of dollars where like a big portfolio might sell. What I'm working in myself is traditionally going to be in that $1 to $5 million range. That's the last few properties that we bought were all in that vicinity. But the first property that I ever bought was a small industrial condo. So similar to like a residential. I know terminology differs all over, but like a condominium or a strata, where think of like a big apartment building where all the units are sold individually. That legal arrangement also exists in industrial real estate, where it could just be a big building split into small bays. So the first investment that I ever bought was a small industrial condo, which was 2,000 square feet, and I paid 330 grand for it. And I had to put about another 70,000 into it to remedy some issues in there. But that was the first one that I bought. I was into it for 400 grand, and I probably wouldn't consider that right now, just because it takes just as much work to manage a small $400,000 condo as one that we bought last year was a $3.1 million property and has a single tenant in there. And those two properties are the exact same to manage, but the effort that goes into the 3.1 million is going to pay a lot more dividends than the small one. So it's a full spectrum, but it's kind of wherever people are comfortable with.
Now, when you're talking dollars, are you talking loonies and toonies, or are you talking American dollars?
It'd be very equivalent, actually. Like the dollar, Canadian, US dollar are pretty similar. I've looked in a number of different markets. You can find a lot of industrial property all over North America, sub $1 million. You can also find a lot of industrial property over $1 million. One stat that I'd like to point to is just the size of the industrial market, because I don't think people get a really good understanding of how big it is. But there's a study done in 2018 which just looked at the US market. So this even excluded Canada. But just the US market, there's 20 billion square feet worth of industrial real estate in the US with an aggregate value of over $1.5 trillion. Like, it is a massive industry that people just don't get a sense for it, because going back to that comment about people, the only thing that the guy knew about industrial real estate was when he got lost when he was driving. People just don't understand how much there is, but there's the full spectrum. If people wanted to get into the industry, they could find an industrial condo or a small warehouse for the same price as a house.
That's crazy. So, all right, I'm showing up to work. You're a veteran, right? You've been in this game for a long time. And I show up for work day one, real estate license in hand, and I go, and you're supposed to mentor me. And you say, all right, here you go, rookie. Here's your first task. You want to get into industrial real estate? Here you go. Do this for a year and report back in. What's that one thing that you're going to push me towards more than anything?
So I can actually talk about this in real time, because I just hired a junior guy on my team about 2 months ago. So this is very current. And the first thing that we did, and it would be the first thing that I'd recommend to anybody considering industrial real estate, is to just start driving the industrial area in your city. So most industrial areas are going to be exclusively in one set area, and that's by design. That's a city planning issue, where they try to segregate the industrial from
Sure.
residential for good purpose, right? Like, you don't want to have like a big garbage depot next to your residential agent, right? Or residential area. So they design that on purpose. And most markets, and I've looked at a number of markets all over North America, most are going to be in a couple of different areas. So there'll be couple big industrial nodes in your city. So what I would say is spend a Saturday or a Sunday, block off a couple of hours, and just physically drive up and down every road in the industrial park. It's going to be quiet, which it usually is on the weekends, so you're not going to have to fight a lot of traffic. And just take note of everything that's happening in the industrial area. So note some of the companies that are there. Note if there's a for sale sign or a for lease sign or going out of business sign or whatever catches your eye. Just start taking note of that, but also take note of all the different types of businesses that are there. And I think that that's the most eye-opening thing that somebody new into industrial real estate will get, is just an appreciation for all the different types of businesses. Because one question that comes up often is, well, how do I find industrial tenants if I buy an industrial building? Well, if you don't even know how broad the topic is, you won't get a sense for all the different types of tenants that are actually looking for space. So that'd be the very first thing that I would do, and it was the very first thing I did with the new guy on my team, and just start getting a better sense for what industrial real estate is, how broad it is. Then if you start doing that regularly every week, Saturday afternoon at noon, you're just going through and you're driving the industrial park, and then you start adding on incrementally. So you might start reading market reports all the big brokerages in every city will produce quarterly market reports where they talk about trends, absorption, vacancy rate, what big deals are happening. And if you start layering all those things on, where you start becoming an expert in industrial real estate by nothing else than just being a student of the market, in a year, using your timetable, in a year, you would have so much information that you would actually be a value add to other people that were considering it. And then in my case, having done it for 16 years, I'd like to think anyways that I'm compounding that knowledge that I have, not just on my local market, but on industrial real estate as a whole. And I think that that's really how you just become an expert in anything. So long answer to your question. First thing I would do, start understanding what the industrial real estate market is in your city.
Yeah. Now, when I started in real estate investing, and it was door knocking, right? I would drive around and I'd find a house that kind of looks a little off, right? And I'd knock on that door. If the person answered, I'd talk with them, and then I'd talk with their neighbors, and then before you know it, I was in some deal. But you can't really do that in industrial because they're the owner's probably not there on how do you prospect in industrial world?
It's not a whole lot different. I mean, I think if you were to take that exact same approach and go business to business and actually make those cold introductions, you will find that there's a large percentage of industrial properties that are owned by the company that operates in them. That's actually industrial real estate. Of all the commercial real estate subcategories, industrial real estate would be the one where there are a lot of private owners that own their own space. So it's work. It's definitely work to uncover who it is, but the process is pretty simple. Like it's there's not a lot of ingenuity that goes behind it. Figure out who the owner is and find a way to get in touch with them. That could be by pulling the land title certificate, finding out who the owner is, tracking them down. A lot of industrial property owners are going to have either another business or they're going to own things. So it should be pretty easy to track down who they are and then just do a cold outreach to them. I also think that an underrated skill, and maybe not skill isn't even the right word, an underrated attribute, just something that you can do in this business, is just a lot of networking. So talking to other investors, there's groups all over that exclusively do this, talking to lawyers, talking to accountants, talking to bankers, brokers, and really just letting them know that this is something that you're interested in considering. You'd love to see more opportunities. And starting that conversation is just a natural way to do it, but it's work, right? The misnomer in this business is that you can just start going on to like a website like LoopNet, or you just put your hand up and say that you're an investor. That doesn't work that way. You're not going to find any deals if you just take that passive approach. The best deals are found by actively going out and hunting for them.
Yeah, the hunt. All right. So
Hunt.
you and I are going into business, right? So I came in, and I've been doing it for 20 years too, and we're hanging out, and we're like, hey, we should do a JV together, right? So we're looking at getting in maybe a deal or something like that. What would you bring to the table? Like, you're like, Josh, this is what I want to do, in the project, and this is what I need you to do because I suck at it. What would that be?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in having a really thorough understanding of the market that you're investing in, and everything that I own is within 20-minute drive of my office. So I know that market very, very well. I'd be quite uncomfortable. Maybe that's even the wrong term on it as well, because I do want to explore other markets down the road. I'd be less comfortable investing in a market that I just don't know. So if we were to do a JV, or if that's, or it was something that I was considering with someone else, I would want to make sure that they were the boots on the ground in that market. So I think a JV, for it to work, both people have to bring something. I've got capital. I don't necessarily need capital just for the sense of having an extra partner. I would want that partner to bring something to the table, just as I would want to bring something. So if it was in my market, I think if we were looking at a property in my market, my value add is just the knowledge that I have about the market. So I've got a very good finger on the pulse of what's happening, and I'll be that local market expert. I would be relying on you to be the local market expert if we were considering another market. And to do that, you would have to have that detailed level of knowledge that I would be looking for what I would have in my market. So that's just, you need to have a very good understanding of what's happening. Who are the major players? What are transactions? What are cap rates? What are price per square foot that these are selling for? What's the lease rate if the property goes vacant and we need to backfill it? What's the demand? Who's the tenant profile? What's the building? What's the physical limitations of the building? What are the opportunities where we could do some value add on it? That's what I would be expecting on a partner side if I was considering another market. And I would have to have a pretty high degree of comfort that that person knew that intimately enough that we could hedge our downside risk. Because we could talk about that as well, but I think industrial real estate has a potential for large downside risk if you make a mistake. So I would want to be ensuring that I'm protecting that downside risk even before I start considering upside potential.
So you mentioned for acronyms for deal makers out there who might not know what you mean, cap rate. Describe what cap rate is.
Yeah, so cap rate it's a metric that is used to place a valuation on a property. So the cap rate itself is just a simple formula. It's your net operating income divided by the value. And you can go down the rabbit hole of trying to extract how cap rates vary on whether you use stabilized income, is it the sale price, is it the estimated value? But the essence of a cap rate is that you're essentially capitalizing an income stream to arrive at an estimate of value. So real quick math, if you had $100,000 in net operating income, so that's your net operating income, just to clarify as well, that's your gross income less your property level expenses. That's where you're going to arrive at your net operating income. If you capitalize $100,000 in NOI, and let's say the prevailing market cap rate is 10%, just so I can do this quick math in my head without needing a calculator.
Yeah.
If you capitalize 100 grand at a 10 cap, you're going to have an estimate of value of $1 million. So that's the huge value with using a cap rate is that once you know what cap rates are in the market, so let's say there were 20 sales that recently happened and they were all clustered around that 10 cap, again, just using an arbitrary number. If they're all clustered around that 10 cap, you have a pretty good idea of that being the market cap rate. So anytime you look at a property, you can extract what the net operating income is and apply that market cap rate to get a rough value of what the property is worth. So it's a very valuable tool. I would say most investors use that as like a starting point when they're looking at an investment. But there's a lot more advanced return metrics that you can use, like IRR and NPV, to extract what your compounded annual return will be over a holding period. But cap rate is a very natural point to start considering a deal.
Yeah. I'm super impressed that like put on the spot, you were able to go through, cap rate and calculations. That's one of my fears. Like I've been in the real estate game for a while. I'm a real estate broker. And I've been in a lot of deals. One of my fears is that someone asks me a question, like, you're a CCIM, right? So you're commercial, you have your commercial designation. I went through some of those courses and one of my fears is being on a show and someone goes, "Hey, what's this?" And then I go, "Ugh." Or I tell the wrong thing and I'm like, so good on you for being able to spit that off. That's a good memory. What, in this, you have the ability to spit off some, numbers and do calculations and use, 100,000 and 10%, like, so 10 cap rate. So like, those are things, but like, what is your superpower that maybe a lot of people don't know about? Like in the commercial real estate game, in business, what's your superpower?
I think I'm a very conservative investor. Even though I take a lot of risks, like my net worth is predominantly in industrial real estate. Probably no surprise there for the guy that has an industrial real estate monopoly game. Probably no surprise I've got most of my net worth in industrial real estate. So that's very risky. Like I'm sure wealth advisors would look at my portfolio and just shudder. Like I'm sure that they'd be very worried. So from that standpoint, I've taken a lot of risk, but I think my superpower, as it were, is that I'm a very conservative investor when I look, and we talked about it earlier, I look at downside risk more than I look at potential, because I feel that if I can protect that downside risk and get a property that I'm confident will continue to be leasable for the foreseeable future, then I just need time on my side. If I'm 41 right now, I figure if I can hold all the properties that I currently have and continue to add to it over the next 10 years, I'll be in a very, very comfortable position. But I've taken the approach that by being that conservative investor, I've also passed on a lot of other opportunities that might have actually done very well. But I sleep comfortably at night knowing that I've got a really good margin of safety in there, that even if the market were to go down a lot, I can still lease those properties to cover my expenses. I'm very, very cautious in that regard. And I think that that's an underrated skill. Like there's not many people that brag about underperforming what other investors who have taken more calculated risks would do. But I sleep well knowing that I'm very patient. I've got a long runway ahead of me to let the real estate pay down the mortgage, get some appreciation, get some cash flow along the way. I'm a long-term thinker as opposed to, and I'm sure you see the same things, Josh. You hear about a guy that buys a meme-based cryptocurrency and he makes 5,000% in a week, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like I definitely didn't do that. I can sleep well at night knowing that I don't need to have those crazy types of returns, nor does my future depend on it. I'm that steady Eddie. Keep going, make the best decisions that I can, and be very patient. And if I miss some of those golden opportunities, then I'm fine with it. So I think that'd be my skills. I'm a long-term thinker.
There's wisdom in what you're sharing, right? So I wasn't that way forever. And there's some psychology, and I went through some counseling, and I had to get my brain rewired. But like I was the swing for the fences guy. It's got to be big payoff. I want to build, exit, invest, super risky. And what does that lead you to? Working in venture capital or private equity, going bankrupt, like going through those kind of things. So adopting more of a long-term, philosophy. I just turned 40 a few days ago, and my mindset shifted about wealth and about money and about building long-term stability. You mentioned something that I think is invaluable, right? You cannot put a price tag on this. I sleep well at night, period. So I think a lot of investors and a lot of deal makers who don't sleep well at night are constantly looking at, what is the other guy making? What should I be focusing on? How big of a chunk are they getting? What am I getting? And they're going through these things. And there's a really good book that I just finished called The Psychology of Money. And he says this may
Morgan
not.
Russell.
Have you read it?
I've read it twice and I have the audiobook. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's so good because he goes, this may not make financial sense, but it makes this sense for me. And because of that, I sleep well at night. And because of that, it's success for me. And I just go, huh. What is something that so based on what I was, just sharing about this, I sleep well at night. How do you parlay that into your investment strategy?
Great question. And great book too. Like anybody listening that just wants a great book to read, that is up there top 3 books I've ever read. It's fantastic. I think that I definitely am taking risks just by having my portfolio so concentrated in one area. But I also think that I'm making calculated risks to the fact that it's something that I just know very well. And it's something that I work in every day. So if I have a property and it were to go vacant for whatever reason, I have the resources, I have the knowledge, I have the expertise to hopefully address that situation as quickly as possible. So I think my risk is mitigated more than someone that just goes and buys an industrial property in a market that they don't know, which to me, that is significantly more risky. So I think that just investing in something that you really know, like going to Warren Buffett's advice, right? He only invests in things that he knows. Well, industrial real estate, I know that better than anything else that I have in my limited brain capacity. That I just know that more than anything else. So for me, I've got comfort in it and I'm passionate about it too. Right? As I've said, I'm passionate about it. So if I can't invest in something that I'm super passionate about and knowledgeable about, and in my mind an expert in, then what am I going to put my money into? Like invested in like a S&P index fund? Well, I mean that's fine. That's probably a safe thing over the long time. I think on average that makes like a 9% return every year, given a long enough runway. So I mean that's safe, but you have no control over it. You have no idea what companies are being added or removed from that, or one company has an awful term and quarter and it drags down the performance. You have no control or interest in that, versus me having something that I'm just passionate and knowledgeable about. I mean, that's just, I'm excited about that. I'm excited when I get to go and look at another property and evaluate it and underwrite it as a potential investment. That actually really gets me excited. So it's part. I think you have to have an investment strategy on something that you really enjoy doing. You know that there's a long enough runway that you can ride that out to let time be on your side, and just something that you really enjoy talking about. To me, that's kind of like the secret of investing.
Huh. The secret of investing is finding something that you enjoy doing, that you're knowledgeable about, and that you could add value to, and you have some level of control over the outcome.
Absolutely. Like, doesn't that sound like a great formula? Like, you add all that up and you have enough time too, right? Like, I think you need time in real estate. It's possible to flip property, and some people have done it in all asset classes, multifamily, industrial, office. They have done it. But I think the longer the time horizon you can have, the greater your chances of success. So you add up all those things, give yourself enough time. I think that it's can't be foolproof, because there's always going to be uncertainty and global issues and things that affect every market. There's always going to be that risk. But I think if you're trying to prepare yourself for the best chance of long-term success, you combine all those things with enough time, and I think you've got a really good chance of great success. Using Borat, great success.
Great success.
Great
Great
success.
success. Great movie. Funny movie.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I love, so this is, we're going to go back to the arts, right? So we sound sophisticated. We're talking about Borat here. What I love about his movies, whether you agree with his stances or not, he makes you feel uncomfortable by pointing out things. I think that's what I love about him. What about you?
Oh, I agree. Okay, the last Borat movie, like, there's a lot of time, like the Giuliani scene, that was really uncomfortable. Like, that was really awkward. But he stayed with it. Like, that's impressive that he can stay in the pocket that long. Like, a lot of guys would just go down or get sacked, but he stays in the pocket as long as he can with those really uncomfortable scenes. So yeah, I agree. I think that's his talent for sure.
Yeah. I love watching these shows where it's like try not to laugh and you have two people kind of like joke in with each other. But he has mastered like the him and Will Ferrell, I say, is getting into a scene and keeping composure while everybody's just super awkward, losing their shit, right? Really talented.
Very talented.
Yeah.
All of his movies have been good.
Yeah. What was your favorite Sasha movie?
The original Borat.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I remember watching that, and similar reaction you had is just like, how is this guy doing this? Like, is this all scripted? Is this real? And then you find out that he was, I think some of them were scripted, if I'm not mistaken, but the vast majority of them were like candid shots. And you just, I remember thinking, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Like, he's put out some really good movies though. So I think I've watched all of them, but Borat that's a classic.
Yeah. Now have you seen him in Les Mis?
I haven't, no.
So he's a talented actor. Like he brought some unique stuff to the game. I'm pretty sure I'm not the best with details, but I think he was in Les Mis. I think he was in a movie where he was a security guard at a train station. It was a musical. He had a knee brace. I forget which one that was, but he's played the part. He's brought it into more serious roles,
Hmm.
and he did a good job. Yeah, so that's your homework is to watch the
I will
musical.
look into that.
So, all right, TV show or movie that focuses on industrial world in the game that you're in. Are there any?
No, there's the best one I can think of, and which I watch from time to time, is Glenn Ross. I don't know if you've seen that.
ABC baby.
Always be closing. That is a fantastic real estate movie, and it's dark. Like, it's a dark comedy. But when you're watching through that, you're like, this is probably what the real estate world was like in the 90s, on how cutthroat it was, and just the nuances of it. I love that movie. There really isn't one. like industrial real estate is it's overlooked all the time. Like nobody thinks about industrial real estate unless they have to. So there hasn't been a big presence on that or focus or really anything. But maybe one of these days I'll make an industrial real estate movie, and it'll probably be my wife that will have to watch it. She's probably expecting me to make an industrial real estate movie. Actually, come to
Well,
think
you
of
got
it.
a board game. You might as well have a TV show or a movie or something. Come on, buddy.
Yeah, might have to do it. I don't think I'll get that in any film festivals, but who knows?
The crazy world of industrial real estate, from bay doors to loading docks. You
Yep,
know,
that's exactly it.
that sounds awesome.
Who's got the higher ceiling?
So, all right, you talked about it's an overlooked investment, and which that in itself is awesome, right? Anytime everybody's passing because it's either too big, not sexy, whatever. It's not the new Bitcoin, NFT, this or that,
Yep.
right? So that means there's opportunity. Um, you said though, in any real estate market, things could go up and down, global stuff, supply chain, whatever the case may be. How do you protect your downside? You said it's something that you have the ability to protect your downside pretty heavily. What are some of your secrets?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, even going back to cap rates, even before I look at a cap rate, I'm going to look at the price per square foot. I think that's the smartest metric to use early on in your analysis if you're looking at industrial real estate, because if you are buying the right price per square foot, you're going to have some margin of safety just over the fact that even if the market were to fall. So, and let's just use again some arbitrary examples. If you find an industrial property that's say selling at $100 a square foot, and the rest of the market's selling at 110 or $115 a square foot, you already know that you can have a bit of a dip in the market, and you're buying that property lower than what the market is currently. And as a reflection of that, you can also have lower lease rates in order to make your numbers work. So that's my first metric. I look at price per square foot as that's like my going in to the underwriting process number. And so long as you can get a good price per square foot, then you start going into more sophisticated, whether you're doing like a full discounted cash flow analysis on a 5-10 year pro forma, or whether you're just doing like a basic underwriting on, oh, here's what the rent's going to be. Can I get financing on it? What's my cash on cash return? No matter how sophisticated or unsophisticated your analysis after that, if you're buying, sorry, I bumped my mic there. I don't know if that
It's a beautiful
distort the
mic,
audio.
by the way.
Yeah,
That's a great mic.
brand new. I just upgraded on it. So,
Yeah.
but except I'm clumsy apparently, and I need to figure out how I stop bumping it. I talk with my hands too much apparently. But if you're buying buying at the right price per square foot, I think you're already hedging your risk just on the fact that the market can theoretically fall, and you're still going to be under that. And to the point on industrial real estate, on it being potentially lucrative because people don't know about it, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that industrial real estate, there are inherent barriers to entry just because the general population as a whole doesn't know about it, right? You take an average residential investor who perhaps has bought a number of houses and has some houses in their portfolio, and they want to expand. Naturally, they're going to be thinking multifamily.
Yep.
If they want to explore commercial, maybe they look for a little strip mall, maybe they look for a small office building or like a medical complex. Like that's the progression that the average retail investor will go through. And by retail, I mean like just like an average investor like you and I. To get into industrial real estate, you have to know something about it. There's very few people that are like, okay, I own 10 houses now, time to add a warehouse to my portfolio.
Mhm.
That's not a natural progression. So it takes an effort to actually learn the market, and by having that barrier to entry, then you're competing with less people. So I think that in itself is what I really like about it. Is it's a much more business friendly atmosphere to be in, because you're not competing with, say, a doctor that decides he wants to buy a 20 unit apartment building and he can pay cash, so he's going to outcompete you, who needs leverage and more time to line it up. I think that's actually a really appealing part about industrial real estate.
Yeah, no, that's I like this, man. I love talking with deal makers who have identified a specific niche. So you talk about your niche, industrial real estate. We got that right. 20 miles. You invest in things 20 miles, of your office, right? What about deal making, right? So you're a broker and you help broker deals and such. Like what how far will you drive to broker a deal? Do you do referrals? Do you do stuff nationwide? Do you do stuff in the US? What happens there?
Yeah, so yeah, I've brokered deals all over. Predominantly, the business that I will broker myself is going to be within, call it 100 miles of my city. Anything outside of that, I'm going to refer it. And the benefit of doing that is very similar to investing. If I'm referring somebody, I'm referring them to a broker that has that detailed, specialized knowledge of the market, which I don't have. Like if somebody wanted to call it buy a big warehouse in Chicago, I don't know the Chicago market more than the average person would. But if I can refer them to somebody that hopefully has a warehouse monopoly game of their own and is that big of a nerd in Chicago, then I know they're going to be in much better hands than the service that I could provide. So I've assisted in transactions at like an operational level where I'll facilitate the introduction to the broker and oversee anything that I can from my position. But I want people being in good hands, and to do that, I think you need local market expertise.
Now, when you're walking through an airport or something like that, and you see someone and you're like, I bet you he or she does industrial real estate. Like, do you guys like dress a certain way, talk a certain way, have a secret handshake? Like, how do you know someone's in the industrial game?
Yeah, no, not a perfect example of it, but the one thing that industrial brokers are sometimes called are dirty booters, just because you're walking through a dirty industrial site. Maybe it's a construction site or it's just dirty in general. That's kind of gone away now as there's a lot of really clean industrial. Like you look at a big Amazon fulfillment center right now, these are like
Spotless.
state of the art, spotless. Like you would not see a crumb. Like those could be medical grade facilities. So it's kind of gone away from like that notion of these being like big dirty manufacturing centers. Those still exist, and that's still an integral part of the economy. But now there's a lot of very clean industrial as well. So you see the full spectrum of that. Is that you could see a guy wearing a golf shirt and chinos, and you could see a guy wearing a full suit walking a Amazon executive through a space. So I wish that there was like a secret handshake. I mean, that would be really killer. It's and maybe I need to start getting one going so we could do that. But as of right now, no, unfortunately not.
Yeah, we need a secret handshake. We've got the game that we could play. You're going to have to open up this sealed package.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to. I might make a video about it. It's going to be such a big event for me.
Yeah.
Again, it's just be me and my wife that watch it, but it's going to be epic.
I'll watch it with you, man. We'll have 3 views on that. Well, 2, because one will come from you guys and one will come from me. But yeah, we'll have a secret handshake. We're going to do a movie deal together.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, opening the game, like the world of industrial. All right, so as you're building out your YouTube channel, what could people expect by subscribing to your YouTube channel or following your work over there?
I think I'm in a unique position where I've got a lot of experience. I've got couple designations, and I didn't touch on this earlier, but I actually did eventually go back to school and I finished my degree, and I also got an MBA along the way. So I'm kind of in a unique position where I've been a broker for a long time. I'm a successful investor. I've got a lot of knowledge on the topic. I think what I can offer is that experience in a format that I just try to make it as digestible as possible. And I really have no agenda on this. And I said to someone the other day, I don't think I've even mentioned the company that I work for, nor have I even mentioned what city that I'm in, because I don't want it to come across that I'm doing this for self-serving purposes, that I'm trying to drive business to myself. I'm really just trying to add some information to the industry of people that want to learn about industrial real estate. Almost, you could, like, my goal is kind of like lifting the veil on industrial real estate. People that want to learn more about it, I'm going to try to use my experience and my knowledge in the best produced video that I'm capable of doing. It's like a small channel, but I'm going to try to just give my knowledge and information, not in no expectation of getting anything in return, other than I'd love it if people subscribe to follow along. But I think that's a bit rare, because I know a lot of like YouTubers, there'll be someone that has like a year in the business or 2 years in the business, and they're going on and they're trying to position themselves as an expert, and they're also using it as like a thinly veiled attempt to drive business for themselves. I'm really just trying to do it that, like I said, I legitimately love talking about industrial real estate, and it's a perfect outlet for me to kind of combine that creativity, use that right brain of mine that's probably underused most of the time. Not that my left brain is getting a whole lot of action either, but try to use that creativity side to just have like that full brain happiness, right? Like I heard a long time ago that some of the happiest people in the world are the ones that find a way to use both sides of their brain. So if they're very analytical and they just everything they do is analytical, they're not mentally exercising that part of their brain. So I like having that creative outlet where I'm doing a lot of analytics and that left brain synthesis all the time. So to have that creative outlet and use it in a way that it's something I just really love talking about is long-winded answer again I really enjoy talking about this, and it's a perfect outlet for me.
Yeah, so I'm while we're chatting, I'm looking at some of these videos. You did a really great job in putting this together. Great images, great, like obviously I can't listen in because I'm chatting with you, but it looks really good. And so where could people go to maybe take a look at your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's I think I'm the only person regularly talking about industrial real estate. So if you YouTube search industrial real estate, I'm pretty sure one of my videos will pop up, or just search my name, just Chad Griffiths, industrial real estate. I'm sure that'll pop up as well. It's I really try to produce the best video that I can. Like we talked a little bit before about just like some of the gear that we use. My setup for my studio, again, probably no surprise, but I've converted a portion of my basement into being a studio, also much to my wife's chagrin. So I've got a makeshift studio in my basement, and I've got like a full setup with camera gear, lighting, audio, and then I've taught myself how to use some editing programs like Premiere Pro and After Effects to kind of just round it all out. And again, it's just something that I enjoy doing. It's a hobby for me more than anything.
Yeah. When you're doing a walkthrough, have you recorded any videos where you're doing a walkthrough through a noisy industrial area?
I've done a couple. The first or second video I did, I actually recorded it in a warehouse, just to try. I thought that'd be a great way to give it an authentic feel. And then I've also done some walkthroughs, and it's really difficult to control the audio quality just
Yeah.
because you're getting so much reverb and echo. It doesn't sound good. There's things you can do to try to control that in that environment, and there's like de-reverb effects you can use, and you can try to minimize the noise, but it doesn't sound good. It's really difficult.
Yeah. When you're doing that, just a quick question, do you use like a lapel, or do you prefer a boom or a shotgun?
So in my studio, I've got a shotgun on a boom, and I think that's just the best way to keep like the mic itself, to keep it out of the set. In podcasts, I think that actually probably works better having it this close. But I've got a shotgun mic on in my studio. When I'm walking around, I've got the Rode Wireless Go, which is actually a really good
It is.
system. Like it's first class. Like that, if someone's looking to have a system, instead of having like a lapel with a long cord tied into, whether you're doing it a camera or how you're setting it up, that Wireless Go, you can even run a lav mic out of the thing. So I'll usually clip the transmitter on my pocket, run a wired lapel up to my closer to my mouth, and then the receiver will be on the camera itself. So it's like a wireless system, and it's fantastic. Like that Wireless Go is killer.
It is pretty good. What do you use for your camera?
I just upgraded it actually. So I've got two. So going back to my amateur photography days, I've got a Canon Mark IV. And then I just upgraded my video camera to the R6. And then I strapped on the 50 millimeter f1.2 lens, which is awesome. It's such a great lens.
Yeah. Nice work, man. Yeah, really great job. So what's the future look like for you, man? You said, you just need time. You've got in some good, you guys have a really decent sized portfolio. You just need, time. 20 years from now, you think you guys will be in a really great position. Let's just say, you also win the lottery. Let's say you and I are doing some scratch off tickets. We're hanging out, having a beer or something like that, talking about hockey, which, by the way, who's your favorite hockey team?
Oilers, Edmonton
Okay.
Oilers. Yeah.
Got it. All right. So we're hanging out. We just get it at a hockey game. We get a scratch off ticket. Holy crap. We just won 100 million loonies and toonies to share between you and I. So you really don't need to work. What are we going to do with our time?
Yeah, it's interesting because as driven as I am to make money, I only I only need a certain amount to be happy. Like I will never be a billionaire or even 100 million because I just don't need that much money. I would far rather spread that out and see how I can affect change through like philanthropic efforts. I don't ever need to be $100 million net worth. I don't need that for my own happiness. So there will be a level where I get to where I just need enough to sustain basic quality of life. But even though I've got like a healthy net worth right now, I live in an average house, drive an average car. I don't spend a lot of money on like those luxuries. Other than I got a bit of a watch addiction.
Yeah.
That'd be the worst thing that I've got going in
A
terms of that.
watch addict, huh?
Yeah, I'm a definite watch addict, but outside of that, I don't need a whole lot of money. So I think if we won $100 million, I would probably want to start setting up some funds for just how can we use that money to help other people. That's probably what my mind would gravitate to. Who knows? Maybe we win $100 million and we're like, well, let's turn it into a billion. And then what's the roadmap that we need to get on to make that happen? Maybe I'm saying I don't need to be worth $100 million trying to make myself out to be this really good guy. Maybe I would just be like an absolute junkie. Maybe I'd be like, I need to buy every watch that I can. I
Right.
want to be the world's biggest watch owner. Who knows? Maybe that amount of money would change a guy. But my long-term goal is I'd love to build out a fund that focuses on industrial real estate in like a North American context where that I'd be in charge of that fund, and I'm sure that there need to be other general partners to assist in it at some level. But if we could start targeting investments in multiple different markets and use boots on the ground. I hit my mic again. See, I am at too much of a hand talker.
Put your
If we
hands down.
if we could get some local boots on the ground, get the local market experts in certain key areas, like Nashville really excites me. I've been talking to a couple guys in Carolina about potentially looking at some property there. I've always been intrigued with Texas and Florida. Those are markets that I think are just going to continue having net immigration. So those markets will continue growing for the foreseeable future. And anytime you have population growth, you're going to have industrial demand. Those two are pretty well correlated. So if you start identifying some markets we want to invest in, start using whatever my channel can grow and develop into. If it starts getting people interested in investing in industrial real estate and they just don't know how to do it, if we could and document it all, and have like videos about it, like here's what we're considering, here's who this is open to, and it's a very transparent open system, and we can combine capital with opportunity and grow and develop kind of like a North American private equity fund on industrial real estate. I think that'd be really cool. That could be a 10-year, even 15, 20-year goal to really get something up to that level. But if I could do that, that's where I would love to take it. But I've got a pretty good lifestyle. Like I've got a wife that's very supportive of all my crazy ideas and fascination or obsession with industrial real estate. I've got a couple kids that are awesome. I love my job. I love the investments that I have. I'm just pretty like happy-go-lucky guy. I don't necessarily need anything to happen to up my level of happiness, other than it's just things that I love doing. So long term, I'd love to do a fund and oversee that and really have investments in a number of different markets, because I think that'd be really fun to do. But aside from that, I want to keep being a broker for the foreseeable future and just incrementally add to my portfolio along the way.
Very cool. What's one question that I should have asked you, or that you wish someone would ask you, business or personal, throughout this interview? You're like, Josh, you completely screwed up. You didn't ask me X.
Oh yeah, well, that's a good question on what question to ask. I've always said that I like being very transparent. Like I will literally answer any question that I'm given, pretty much on anything, not even just industrial real estate, but in general. Like I might not give the answer that everybody wants to hear, because there's reasons that I like. If somebody asks me how much money I make as a broker, that's a tough one to answer, because I could potentially compromise other people by answering that, just by if numbers get posted and then someone sees, like if there's a national awards thing that goes out and perhaps I'm number 7 and someone else was number 5, then they could connect the dots on how much they were making. So there's certain questions that I've got to be somewhat political with on that. But aside from that, I'll give an answer. Like it just might not be the direct answer. I just can't say, yeah, I made XXX. I'll give like a rough idea on it. I mean, one thing you could ask is size of my portfolio. That's a good question as well.
It's always dangerous asking a man the size of his portfolio, but kind of give us an idea of the size of your portfolio.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about that too, because it's a decent size. We've got 6 properties as a partnership, and it's about, we're closing on one next week actually for 4.1 million, and that will add roughly 30,000 square feet. So we're probably going to be about 100,000 square feet of industrial property, which with an aggregate value somewhere in the 16 to 17 million dollar range, which sounds pretty attractive. But I've got partners on everything, ranging from one property I have one partner on, and another property we have 9 partners on it. So we've got partners on all of it, and then obviously we have debt on it too. So it's about 16 17 million. We'll have to see what some of those values are on there. So it's not a huge portfolio by any means, but again, if my goal is to add one a year, and over the next 10 15 years pay down all that debt, I'll be in a very comfortable position in 10 15 years.
Very cool. I love that, man. Thank you. That is so that we, my business partner and I, and our advisors, we go through this process where we go through our mission, mission value, core values kind of thing, mission, vision, core values, right? Anyways, one of the things that we have to do is list off our core values that we find are important. And, authenticity is like high on the list, like humility and authenticity are huge, right? Like I built some cool stuff, but I also lost it all multiple times, right?
Yeah.
So like if you can't, especially being a deal maker, like we just the world of the, one of my buddies says, boats, coats, and whatever, it's the look how successful I am by how many houses I have, how many jets I have, and such like that. So I love your transparency and just your humility of how you're approaching this. Kudos to you, bro. That's very cool.
Yeah, thanks,
Very,
man.
very cool. Yeah. So for other fellow deal makers out there that like want to connect with you, learn about industrial real estate, maybe connected, do a deal with you, what's a good place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn, so that's a pretty good spot to do. I'll shoot you my LinkedIn address if you put it in the show notes, or however you can add that. And that's a good way to do it. And email is also good. Griffiths CRE@gmail.com. I get people reaching out to me all over the world. I'm very fortunate to have like a really small audience that asks questions, and I genuinely try to answer every question that comes in. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than I'd like if I just have a lot on my plate, but I try to get back to everybody within a day. And any question, if you want to ask a question about brokerage, if you want to ask a question about an industrial property, I've even introduced people in other markets to brokerages or other investors. So I try to help out whenever I can. The one thing that I would really I strive towards is I just wanted to come across as genuine as possible. I just I want people to say, I'm not trying to sell something, I'm not trying to sign them up for something. I just genuinely want to help people. And it might get to a point where I can't respond to everybody, but I try my best. So LinkedIn, send me a message on LinkedIn, send me an email, and I'll do my best to get you an answer or connect you however I can.
Very cool. And we have them up on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with you, they could go down the show notes, connect with you directly. Chad, thanks for coming on the show. fellow deal makers, right? Reach out to our guests. Say thank you for being on the show. Find a way to connect with them, do a deal with them. And if you are working on a specific deal and you want to talk about it here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, and then get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. Peace.